Hello, I'm Phil, guitarist and singer from Trilobite. I'm going to run through my equipment a little bit today. We have a new single out. I say single, it's 28 and a half minutes long, and we've cut it into several chunks to get a sensible price from iTunes, who decided when I sent them the 28-minute piece as one that they were going to charge people $9.99 for it, which of course nobody is going to pay for one song, even if it is 28 minutes long. So it is now 8 songs, but they all smoothly blend into each other. Anyway, I'm going to talk about my equipment. So my main instrument for Trilobite is this fairly cheap and cheerful Schecter Omen 7 Extreme. Extreme. It was obviously designed with metal in mind. Extreme. And this here is the thing that creates all the nice tone. This is the nicest piece of musical equipment I have, which is a Dietzel Einstein, a fairly simple 100 watt amp with 2 channels, and it has a few different modes to one channel, but I tend to keep that clean so that I have a fairly simple, clean and overdriven setup. So, also here I have my good friend Bean, after whom Beandug Studios is named. She wonders why we're here. She doesn't know why I brought her here. So yeah, the main sound is just this guitar going into the Dietzel Einstein. We play progressive stuff. I'm never sure whether to call it progressive metal or progressive rock, or just stick with progressive, and then you can decide for yourself what genre it fits into. But as a result, I use a guitar that allows me to play more notes than a regular guitar. So if you look carefully, my guitar has 7 strings, and I tune it weirdly. I have it in drop D with a low G underneath, just a semitone higher than an 8-string guitar in standard tuning. This allows me to play nicely spread out chords like because Doug doesn't play bass like a normal bass player and plays all these shitty chords up here. Like, he's basically a guitarist, but because he's short for a giraffe, a bass looks better on him. Because a guitar he'd look like he's playing a ukulele, which is obviously why he chose to play bass. But he didn't really want to play bass, so he plays all that sort of shit on it. And so most of the time he's not playing any low notes, so I have to play low notes a lot of the time, which is why I have this silly tuning. This is where my amp really helps, because it has a knob on it that is labeled deep, and if I turn that up I get lots of bass. I get loads and loads of bass in my sound, so I can play things like that. And then it doesn't matter that our bass player isn't actually providing any low frequencies for the mix. So, yeah, that's one thing that I love about my amp. So, I have a pedal board that has more on it than I normally use for Trilobite. So, I'm also in another band called That Band. Which is more funk rock, and I play around with a few different overdrives, and I've got like a really nasty distortion that doubles quite nicely as a fuzz. Not a sound that I really use in Trilobite, but I use the delay here. I've got a Boss Space Echo. This is a digital version of a tape echo that Roland used to make. It's a fairly good emulation of a tape echo, so I would use that for solos. Or for making chords sound a little bit bigger and sustain more. So that's the Space Echo. Oh, it's got another cool function. If you hold down this pedal, it goes bonkers! Isn't that awesome? Whee! I have a phaser that cost almost nothing. This is probably made in China somewhere by a 3-year-old. I'm a terrible person, I know. So it's a one-trick pony, really, but it does that trick quite well. This is a really cheap Ibanez tube screamer that they made in the early 2000s. And it's cheap because of the plastic housing, but it actually isn't a bad pedal. It's very similar to a proper tube screamer that isn't in a shitty plastic housing. So you can do that sort of adding attack thing and creating a really genty tone if you manage to turn the pedal on, because it doesn't like being turned on. So it's not one of those pedals that you can just turn on when you want it. You have to turn it on before you start a song, and then you have to use it for the whole song. But it does this. Yeah, this is not mine, so I'm not even going to demonstrate that. It's a Boss DS1. You probably know what one of them sounds like if you're a guitarist. I don't find it particularly usable at all, but I know it has its uses in grunge and other things that I don't really play. I won't demo these because I don't use them for Trilobite, really. I like the distortion that comes from the amp. You probably know what a Crybaby sounds like, but just in case you would like to hear a Crybaby again, because you can never get too much Crybaby, here's some Crybaby with a bit of the Space Echo delay. What else do I have here that I use from time to time? This here is another guitar that I use for Trilobite, but only for a couple of songs, because it has a Floyd Rose. I haven't used it for a while, it's quite dusty. It has a Floyd Rose, so you can't really put it in other tunings, and I have this one in standard tuning, and most of our songs are in the silly tuning that I have on this guitar with drop D with a low G underneath. It's got a very different sound. It's a lot cleaner, you know. This is an Agile Interceptor Pro 727, yeah. Pro, I think, is a little title that they put on their neck-through models. So this is one chunk, which is great because you can reach all the high frets quite easily. It's got EMG 707 pickups in, which are decent. I'm not a huge fan of them, but they're good. They just don't have any tonal characteristics that I am particularly fond of. And ebony fretboard, 24 frets, 7 strings, 27-inch scale length, which makes playing it a little bit harder, but it sounds more snappy and has a bit more sustain. So it's quite a good guitar for playing fast stuff like our song Gigantica in Testicle. This is the first guitar that I ever owned. The first electric guitar, anyway. And it was black. This is an Ibanez GSA... I don't know, there's some number after it. Whatever Ibanez GSAs were called in the early 2000s. I think I got it in 2001 or 2002. It's only got 6 strings on it, this one. And yes, it used to be black, and it used to have single coil humbucker. None of the pickups in here are original. So this pickup was given to me by my good friend Guy of what's his YouTube channel called? Guy's a Guitarist. He's a guitar teacher from St. Austell and also has a recording studio there. I will recommend you check out his YouTube channel. This pickup is from a Mexican Fender Strat that I modified for my sister-in-law. And this here is a BC Rich BDSM humbucker from my Mockingbird, because I replaced that pickup with a Seymour Duncan. That's a guitar I don't really use that much. I won't be demonstrating it today, but...
Oh, wow, that's lovely, so in tune.
Bear with me. This is my funky guitar, really. It's got quite a lot of hum because that's a single coil pickup, but it's just such a lovely bouncy sound. And it's also got a setting just in between the middle and the bridge pickup is a setting where both of these pickups are on and they're out of phase, which when it's clean sounds fairly horrible. It's very spiky and very loud, but with distortion, especially if I put it in drop D. a bit more brightness to it than the normal bridge humbucker setting. This is getting quite boring, isn't it? Very technical. It's just a guitar. It makes noise. It makes lots of noise, especially if you play it like this. Noise. Yeah, that's basically what all my equipment does, is it makes noises. If I use it well, it makes pleasant noises. If I use it badly, it makes unpleasant noises. Right, okay. Are you satisfied with my explanation of all the stuff that I use for this band? Right, okay, well, fuck off then. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye. Oh, no, before I go, I should remind you that we have recordings available to purchase on iTunes and Amazon and all over the place. Our EP, Pathogens, which came out last year, and our new thing. I call it a thing because it's sort of a single, it's sort of an EP, it's almost long enough to be called an album, and it's called Trilobite. Not to be confused with Trilobite by another Trilobite, which I didn't know about before we called this band Trilobite. We weren't aware that there's another band in America who are no longer active, and they were called Trilobite. Look out for the two newer releases, one last year and one this year. So Pathogens and Trilobite are what we have. So Pathogens and Trilobite.
For the first inside, the creature was an egg not long ago. Shell so soft she hides